If you say these 3 words during a police encounter, you could go from a simple conversation to handcuffs on your wrists in seconds. And the scary part? Most people say them thinking they're being smart, thinking they're protecting themselves, thinking they're in control. They're not. Because those 3 words don't help you. They trigger something. They flip a switch, and once that switch is flipped, everything changes. So before you ever get pulled over, before you ever get questioned, you need to hear this, because in the wrong moment, with the wrong tone, those 3 words can get you arrested fast. Picture this. You're driving. Normal day. Nothing unusual. Then, sirens. Lights flash behind you. Your chest tightens. You pull over. Your brain starts racing. What did I do? Was I speeding? Is everything okay? The officer walks up. Slow steps. Hand resting near their belt. They tap your window. You roll it down. Cop. License and registration. You hand it over. Everything still feels normal. But then the conversation starts. Cop. Do you know why I stopped you? Now right here, this is where most people start making mistakes. But we're not even at the dangerous part yet. You might say, you. No, officer. Good. That's calm. That's safe. But then the officer keeps going. Cop. Where are you coming from? Cop. Have you had anything to drink? Cop. Is this your car? The questions stack up, and you feel it. That pressure, that urge to respond, to explain, to cooperate. And then it happens. The 3 words. You. I know my rights. Pause. Everything shifts. The energy changes instantly. The officer's face tightens just slightly. Their tone gets colder, more serious. And now, you've just escalated the situation. Let me explain why. Those 3 words, I know my rights, sound powerful. They sound confident. They sound like control. But to an officer in that moment, they sound like resistance. They sound like confrontation. They sound like someone who might become a problem. And that's when things start moving in a different direction. Faster, sharper, less forgiving. Let's rewind and play that out again. But slower. Cop. Have you had anything to drink tonight? You hesitate. You feel nervous. You want to show you're not weak. So you say it. You. I know my rights. Right there, you didn't answer the question. But you also didn't stay neutral. You challenged the tone. You created tension. Now the officer is thinking, okay, this person is going to be difficult. Let's see what else is going on. And now they start digging. Cop. Step out of the vehicle. Cop. Turn around. Cop. Place your hands behind your back. And you're standing there thinking, how did this escalate so fast? It escalated because of those 3 words. Now listen carefully. You absolutely have rights. Important ones. Powerful ones. But saying, I know my rights, is not how you use them. It's how you trigger attention. Because rights are not about announcing. They're about action. Calm, controlled action. Let's break this down in a real scenario. Because this is where people get caught. Same traffic stop, same officer, same questions. But this time, instead of saying those 3 words, you do something different. Cop. Have you had anything to drink tonight? You don't get defensive. You don't challenge. You don't try to sound tough. You say, I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Now feel the difference. No tension, no attitude, no escalation, just calm control, and that's powerful. Because now you're actually using your rights instead of announcing them. But wait, it gets deeper, because I know my rights isn't the only way people get themselves into trouble. It's how they say it. It's when they say it, and what they do after. Let's go further. You're standing outside your car now. The officer asks again, Cop, why are you being difficult? And this is where people double down. You. Because I know my rights. Now you've repeated it. You've reinforced it. And now it feels like defiance, even if that's not your intention. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Police encounters are not just about words. They're about perception, tone, behavior, energy. You might think you're being assertive, but they might see it as escalation. And once they perceive escalation, they respond to it quickly. Let me show you how fast this can go wrong. Realistic scenario. Driver gets pulled over for a minor issue, maybe a broken taillight. Nothing serious. Conversation starts. Officer asks a few questions. Driver feels uncomfortable. Driver wants control. Driver says, "I know my rights." Officer pauses. Now the stop shifts. Officer starts looking deeper, runs more checks, asks more questions. Requests backup. Why? Because now, this isn't just a routine stop. Now it's a situation. And situations get handled differently. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people make right after saying those 3 words. They keep talking. They explain. They argue. They justify. And every word makes it worse. Because once tension is created, more words don't fix it. They fuel it. This is why silence is one of the most powerful tools you have. But silence only works if you use it correctly. Let's go back again. Cop. Have you had anything to drink? Instead of saying, "I know my rights," you say, "I'd prefer not to answer any questions." Then you stop. You don't fill the silence. You don't explain. You don't argue. You just stay calm. That's control. That's protection. Now here's where things get even more serious. Sometimes saying, "I know my rights," doesn't just escalate the moment. It gives the officer justification to push harder. Because now they expect resistance. They prepare for it. And when officers prepare for resistance, they act differently. More commands, less conversation, more control. And that's when people panic. Because suddenly, the situation feels out of their hands. But the truth is, it slipped out of their hands the moment they escalated it. Let me give you another scenario. This one hits hard. You're pulled over. Everything is normal. Then the officer asks, "Cop, mind if I take a look inside your vehicle?" This is a critical moment. And many people, instead of responding calmly, jump straight to, "I know my rights. You need a warrant." Now listen carefully, legally. That might sound correct, but the way it's delivered, confrontational, sharp, defensive, and now the officer is thinking, what are they hiding? So instead of a simple stop, you've now created suspicion, and suspicion leads to action. Now compare that with this. Cop, mind if I take a look inside your vehicle? You, I don't consent to any searches. That's it. No attitude, no lecture, no escalation, just clear, controlled refusal. And that difference matters a lot because one creates tension, the other maintains control. Let's interrupt this for a second because this part is critical. You need to understand something most people never learn. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it and when you say it. I know my rights sounds like power, but in the wrong moment, it creates risk, real risk, because it changes the dynamic. And once that dynamic changes, everything after becomes harder, more intense, more unpredictable. Let's go deeper into what happens psychologically. When you say, "I know my rights," you're signaling awareness, but also resistance. And resistance triggers response. Officers are trained to handle resistance. And that response, it's not always gentle. So instead of protecting yourself, you've just put yourself in a more aggressive situation. Now here's the part nobody tells you. You don't need to prove anything during a traffic stop. You don't need to show how much you know. You don't need to win an argument. Your goal is simple. Get through the encounter safely. That's it. And the way you do that is by staying calm, saying less, and avoiding escalation, not by announcing your rights, but by using them quietly. Let's go back one more time, because repetition is what makes this stick. Cop, have you had anything to drink? Wrong move. I know my rights. Right move. I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Cop, can I search your car? Wrong move. I know my rights. You need a warrant. Right move. I don't consent to any searches. See the pattern? Control versus confrontation. Calm versus conflict. Protection versus escalation. And that difference can decide how your entire encounter goes. Now imagine this. Same stop, same officer, but this time, you say nothing extra. You stay calm. You answer only what's required. You don't argue. You don't announce. You just move through it. And guess what? The stop ends faster. cleaner, safer. Because you didn't give it fuel, you didn't give it tension, you didn't give it those 3 words. Now I want you to feel this, because this is real. You're on the side of the road, lights flashing behind you, cars passing, your heart beating fast. The officer leans in and asks a question, and in that moment, you have 2 choices: react emotionally or respond strategically. Most people react. They say what feels powerful. I know my rights, but power isn't loud, it's controlled, it's quiet, it's precise, and the people who understand that are the ones who walk away without problems. Let me leave you with this. Those 3 words, they're not illegal, they're not forbidden, but they're dangerous in the wrong moment. Because they don't protect you. They provoke. And once you provoke, you lose control of how the situation unfolds. So the next time you're pulled over, next time an officer starts asking questions, next time you feel that pressure to speak, remember this. You don't need to announce your rights. You need to use them calmly, quietly, strategically, because the difference between walking away and being placed in handcuffs can come down to just 3 words you should never say.